Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 199 of Mike in the Midwest, our mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast. And you can find us on the social media. You can find me on the social media at Be Our Guest Mike. But the fun place to find me, is in the Be Our Guest Podcast Clubhouse, which you can find at beourguestpodcast.com/Discord, where this morning we have been all a flutter because we have an announcement over there about Tiana's Bayou Adventure opening. We have an opening date. We've been speculating over the past few months. Of course, I hedge my bets on July 4th because this is kind of an all-American attraction. We had some people saying Juneteenth. Both good bets, I think. I think we have a compromise for the date. We found out today, according to Scott Gustin over on Twitter, on X, that it looks like it's going to be June 28th. So come on over to the Discord, the Clubhouse, beourguestpodcast.com/Discord. We're all talking about it. What does this mean? Get your park reservations. Are we going to have lightning lanes? Are we going to have individual lightning lanes? What's this mean for Genie Plus? Get your 2 cents in. It's so fun. We have people on different continents debating this. And of course, we'll talk about it tonight on the Be Our Guest Podcast live call-in show. So join us tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. Scotty G will be joining me. We'll be taking your calls, and we're going to be having fun. That's what the Be Our Guest Podcast is all about. We are number one in fun. But yeah, thanks. Hope you're having a great Sunday. And by the way, the most important thing to say, which I didn't say at the top of the show, happy Mother's Day to all the Disney moms out there. Hope you're having a great and relaxing day, and that you're getting to spend some time with your friends and family. Mostly your family, but hopefully some of your friends as well. Hopefully you had your favorite breakfast by now. Hopefully you're getting ready to have a great lunch. That's why I jumped in here early, because Paige is here. Mallory, unfortunately, I just heard her say she had to leave for work because, when you're 16, you're low man on the totem pole, low woman on the totem pole. She works at a boutique. It's called Mod on Trend. So she gets all dialed up and works at a boutique, a women's fashion store. And so she's going in right now to sell fashion clothes at this place, which I don't go into, obviously, because I know nothing about fashion. Look at how I'm dressed right now. This is a hoodie from Walmart that was a throwaway hoodie that was left over because one of the mornings it wasn't so cold. So yeah, she's working today until 4:45. So but Paige is home because this past week in college athletics, there's this 1 week where it's called the dead week. You're not allowed to make any contact with future recruits. You cannot text, you cannot call, you cannot visit, you cannot do anything. So head coach went to Mexico. Paige came down here and has spent the last week with us. So it's been a huge blessing to have her here and hanging out with. I've said this many times on the show, and if you're a parent, having your entire family under one roof, it's the greatest blessing of all time. It is awesome. It is the best. 5 heads under this roof because it's Riley. It's awesome. As a parent, you want nothing else. I mean, we all know I love my Disney trips. I love going to Walt Disney World. I love Disneyland. You see me on the Discord in the Clubhouse. I can't wait to go on our Disney cruise in less than 60 days. Nothing better, but I'll tell you what, my heart's been as full as it can be having my whole family here under one roof. It's awesome. So yeah, hope all the Disney moms are having the best Mother's Day today. Hopefully you got some flowers, you got a good meal, and you are still having a great day through the rest of the day. Join us tonight for the call-in show if you want, but if not, just sit back and relax and just have a great day with your family. I totally understand. So today, I'm jumping in here early. It might not be the longest show ever because, again, Paige is here. We're going to take Pam out to lunch while she's still here. So I hope you understand that. But family first, right? I always want you guys to have family first. Absolutely. Family first over the show. That's how it goes. But today, that's what's happening here. Also, I just want to say, I know that the storms have been rough this past week in Tennessee and Oklahoma. It's been wild around here. We had crazy hail. So hopefully that has not affected you. If it has, we're praying for your communities, for your family. So hang in there. I know it's probably going to continue here for the next little bit as we're in the spring, but know that we're thinking of you. And how about those northern lights the last couple of nights, right? I was in a trivia Friday night so I didn't get to see like the beautiful sights as Scott was posting them. Everybody was posting them over in the clubhouse. I was sitting in a trivia contest, which we didn't win because the last two categories were Friends and Marvel movies, which I'd never watched Friends that much, and I've never seen a Marvel movie, so we lost big time. But we were winning until we went down the toilet for those last two categories, which if I could have had some of my friends here on the show as part of my team, we would have probably done better. Because Scott, if you were on the podcast cruise a couple of podcast cruises ago, after one of the tastings, I think it was mixology class, he was letting everybody know that he is a Friends expert on the ship. And I know many, many of you are Marvel experts of the highest degree. So I would have loved to have you sitting at my table, but we were the cheer parent table, and we were rocking it up until we got to Friends and Marvel, which we were not great at. So the here for the cheer team fell apart on Friday night, but man, didn't get to see all the pictures because I was in a basically a VFW hall until it's like 11 o'clock. It seemed like all the pictures were coming out a little bit earlier than that. And then I heard last night that it was going to happen again. I didn't see much last night. It was kind of disappointing on Saturday night. So, but I loved seeing everybody posted their pictures in the Discord. That was awesome. So thanks for doing that. And if it happens again, keep posting them because I love it. I'm a space dude and I love seeing stuff like that. I mean, the beauty of the universe is amazing. So keep doing that. All right. So that's kind of what's happening around here. Northern Lights, awesome. Tornadoes, terrible. So got a little yin and a yang, right? It's just the good and the bad. You take them all, and there you have the facts of life. Yes, the facts of life. Some of you will get that. Some of you will not. Blair was awesome back in the day. Okay, so let's hit the feedback from last week. Last week, we talked about stores that I miss. And I don't think did I mention Venture? I don't think I did. Did I mention Venture? That might only be a St. Louis place. But Venture was like Target. It was just like Target. It was actually kind of close to Target back in the day. It was a department store, but I think it was cheaper than Target. That's probably why we shop there all the time. The thing I wanted to say about Venture, I was thinking about this on treadmill this morning. When we went into Venture, we always got popcorn. And Venture, the store, always like is my childhood memory. It always smelled like popcorn. And so when you went in, you got a popcorn and a soda. And as you shopped, you ate popcorn and soda. That's what I remember about Venture. But I don't know if anybody remembers Venture. And there was also a place in St. Louis called Grandpa Pigeons that my grandparents used to take us to, like a super cheap. I mean, it was like a dump. But we used to always go to Grandpa Pigeons for some reason. So maybe Dennis will remember Grandpa Pigeons. You had to be, I think you totally had to be from St. Louis to know Grandpa Pigeons. But anyway, somebody will remember. Again, patreon.com/BRGS podcast. Maybe you'll remember Grandpa Pigeons, maybe not, because I know we have St. Louis listeners. All right, let's hit the feedback from last week. And we have Ryan Kennedy, because we have a lot of feedback. Ryan Kennedy says, oh man, Toys R Us was unreal. When I was a kid, telling me we were going to Toys R Us was like telling me I was going to Disney World. Circuit City was awesome as well. Man, you got me missing retail. Guess I better drive to Ollie's. Anyways, the place I miss is Ryan's Buffet. I think I've been there once, and I think I loved it. I think it was at the corner of 270 and St. Charles Rock Road. For those people in St. Louis, I think that's where Ryan's was, I think. And I think it was across the street from Dalton's and Best. I've talked about that. Anyway, continuing. As a kid, I felt special going there because my name is Ryan. Also, it's just like a cruise. There was all you can eat soft serve ice cream. I also miss laser tag, but I guess I could find that somewhere else. Yes. And you know what? Did you have this place? Ponderosa. Did not Ponderosa have all you could eat soft serve? Because my buddy Steve, I've talked about Steve many times on here. He was my catcher in Little League. He was killed in a car accident by a drunk driver. Probably about 15 years ago. He was a teacher too. But he worked at a Ponderosa when we were like in high school at the Ponderosa we always went to. And so he'd hook us up, but I think they had unlimited soft serve too. And we used to tear that up. We used to go there because you could eat. And I took my kids because the Ponderosa was basically in the parking lot of Wedgwood Elementary where I taught with Pam for years and years. And at the last week of school every year, we would take our kids who did not miss a homework assignment for the whole year. It was called the 100% Club. if you didn't miss any homework assignments for the whole year, we'd take them to Ponderosa and buy them lunch. Like, we'd get them the buffet, and every year some kid would overeat and throw up. It was ridiculous. Sorry about that, but every year some kid would show off, try to eat too much and get sick. But we'd take them to Ponderosa because we could just walk there, because basically it was in the parking lot, that and Lee's Chicken. Anyway, John Luther says, great feedback there, Ryan. You nailed it. Ollie's. I still haven't, we got to go to Ollie's because we have one. I just haven't been there and I'm dying to go there. John Luther says, I first heard of hyperspace hoopla a few weeks ago. That night, lacking any context, I put a video of it on the TV for my family to watch. That sure was something else. I never thought I'd be able to see Darth Vader and Boba Fett dancing to Michael Jackson's Bad, but there it was. I'm saying, is it not a fever dream? We used to watch this. We go to Star Wars weekends multiple years, and we always went back to the studios for hyperspace hoopla, because it was the craziest thing. You would have Queen Amidala out there dancing to Spice Girls. You would have Princess Leia pop out and dance to some Madonna song. You never knew what you were going to get. It was the wildest thing. Darth Vader, you can't touch this. And he'd be doing MC hammering across the stage. It was wild. If you've never seen it, look up the hyperspace hoopla videos on YouTube. It's worth it. John continues, for the stores, I remember service merchandise in Circuit City well. Kmart, though, is the nearest big store that I could ride my bike to. We did that as well as a kid. I remember buying many toys, cassettes, and CDs there before I had a car. But Toys R Us, I still remember going there as a kid and just being amazed at all the stuff that I wanted to take home. Years later, my kids were so sad when they learned the stores were closing down. We went during the final 70% off days and just let them buy whatever they wanted. They probably picked 8 things each, and they were out of there for under $100. It was a magical thing. It was magical to be able to just say yes to whatever they wanted that day. Yeah, it's probably kind of like a Willy Wonka moment, right? When, they were just basically giving stuff away at that point. And as a kid, how magical would that have been if you would have been in their shoes, right? As a kid, you were like, God, what if I could have? Because I think like some kids' game shows gave away, like a run in one of these stores, like a shopping spree. And that's basically what you just gave your kid. You gave them like the ultimate prize from Double Dare or Legends of the Hidden Temple. And isn't that awesome to give your kid something like that? John, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Like Toys R Us, and in my instance, this place called Children's Palace, which was like a local Toys R Us. It just seemed like the toys were stacked to the ceiling, and the ceilings were 50 feet tall. And again, I was 6, so it's probably perspective, but it seemed like the inventory was infinite, right? And it probably wasn't, but it was just the scale of the place. As a kid, in my memory, there must have been 100, Monopoly games, and there must have been 29 big wheels of the same kind, and 30 Huffy bikes. There probably wasn't, but that's how I picture it in my mind's eye. So I'm not gonna change, because that's how I want to remember it. All right, let's see what other feedback we got here on this. And Len is here, and he says, the stores I miss going to from my past is Radio Shack. Oh my God. I'm such a nerd. I loved Radio Shack because we had one. I used to ride my bike to it all the time. He says, my college degree is in electronics engineering. And while I was growing up, I liked to play around with a lot of the stuff you could pick up from your local Radio Shack store. This included resistors, capacitors, LEDs, and simple digital integrated circuits. You could also pick up the cool things there, like police and fire scanners and weather radios. At that point in my life, it was definitely my toy store. I'm with you, Len. I always had a radio scanner, the handheld. I had one of those. I always bought the book that had the new listings of what all the frequencies, so you knew where to program for your local. You could listen to your train, like your train switches, like where the trains would come through, your EMS, your local police stations, hotels, securities. I love that stuff. I still have it. It's up in it's in like a drawer somewhere, because now you can do it all through your phone. There's apps that do that. But I used to love like the 101 activity kits you could get at Radio Shack. Radio Shack had so much cool stuff. I loved Radio Shack. And at the mall, that was always one of my stops. Radio Shack at the mall. I would always check out all the like little handheld games. The Radio Shack was the best. And for some reason, I loved how when you checked out, they always asked you like the last 4 of your phone number and typed it into I guess it's like a TRS-80. Great memory, Len. Thank you. Dennis, my buddy down in Texas. Two places I missed the most were on your list. There was a Dalgens on Manchester Road that we used to shop at. I remember that Dalgens. I can't remember everything it became after Dalgens closed, but I remember it turning into a Best Buy. I think they sell flooring in that space now. I remember spending a lot of time in the toy aisle there and then later in the stereo showroom. I'm also very nostalgic for Toys R Us. You described it perfectly. Walking down the aisle that was seemingly stocked from floor to ceiling with your favorite things was just magic as a kid. I, of course, loved the aisle with the Star Wars action figures and toys. It felt a little like living the movie. Perfect. Dennis said it perfectly. You went in there, you saw action figures, you saw them in the cardboard, and they had the perfect logo from the Star Wars movie. Because remember, you didn't have as much when we were kids. You didn't have all this access to Disney Plus, and you could watch it whenever you wanted. You didn't even have the movies at home. So to be able to see something hanging in the store that was Star Wars, that was it. Like, I mean, you had contact with the character. That was as close as you got. And it was just super cool to see it. Yeah, totally. And it floor to ceiling. And it felt like it was 5 stories tall. I'm not kidding. That's exactly how it felt. Dennis put it perfectly. Trisha says, up in Wisconsin, happy Mother's Day to Trisha. We celebrated Star Wars Day at a swim meet, but I got to see the 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace. By the way, they said Phantom Menace is the #1 all-time streamed movie on Disney Plus this week. That's pretty cool because there are people always dog on it. I like the movie. I hit the jackpot purchasing a couple of Star Wars Lego sets, a Star Wars Spirit jersey, and a Princess Leia Loungefly bag. I tend to take advantage of sales, and then my husband doesn't buy me an anniversary or Mother's Day gifts. I'd take a Lego over flowers any day. Smart, because flowers go away. That's permanent. I do remember Kmart in Circuit City, but as a kid, the stores that excited me the most were Toys R Us, Kids R Us, clothing version of the toy store with a small indoor play area, and KB Toys. Oh, Trisha, dude, you nailed it, because that's like the cheaper version of Toys R Us, and I loved KB. KB was so densely, let's see if you say it. I don't know. Maybe I'm cutting you off here. I just remember at the toy stores that they had demo toys to play with. The closest thing that I see now is the building area of some Lego stores. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Disney store with the pyramid of stuffed animals in front of the movie screen. Yeah, exactly. The Disney store. Here's the thing about KB, because we had KB too at the mall, and I worked at the mall, and I was always at the mall. KB was so densely packed with toys, and they were cheaper toys usually too. But I just remember KB, like the toys per square foot in that store. I mean, it was just jammed in there. It was like Claire's, that store for girls. Like they jammed stuff in there. Because I was used to joke with Paige when she would shop in there as a little girl. Like everything was just jammed in there. That's how KB was, but it was like toys, and I loved it. I mean, as a kid, you were just like Toys R Us was kind of beautiful, like Willy Wonka's factory. KB was like, we're going to take every toy, kind of cheaper versions of toys, and just jam it in here. And there's going to be just gajillion toys in a small store. But it was wonderful as a kid. Who cared? I didn't care. I didn't care about aesthetics. I just cared about seeing every toy in the world. It was awesome. And George, my good buddy out in Washington State by way of Hawaii, says, aloha, Mike. Just got back from an epic road trip, so catching up on recent episodes. Whenever you mention cell phones, you always get my attention, because this is where he works in this industry. As of this month, I will have been working in the cell phone industry for 28 years. My first role was selling bag phones and the brick phones. So I've seen it all and remember most of it. It's awesome. As far as garages, unfortunately, I never really got to know either of my grandfathers, but my own dad had a very similar garage. Cookie tins instead of coffee cans full of nuts, bolts, nails, and screws. My dad only called a repair person only when he absolutely didn't have a choice. He somehow just figured it out. He's framed and finished a basement, fixed most cars issues we've ever had, poured cement slabs, and much more. He earned a degree while in the Air Force and retired as a civil engineer with a rank of major. Funny thing, he could never figure out how to program a VCR and struggles with most things electronic. I'm blessed to have adopted most of his traits, as I have my own garage filled with tools and am able to fix most things, but am nowhere near my dad's ability. I definitely agree. We seem to be in a time where there are less tinkerers, DIYers with knowledge of how stuff works that is not taught in schools today. I think that is because, and I'm here, I'm in this generation, the teachers that were in my generation of about, because I came out of school in the late 90s as a teacher, and they wanted us to push 100% of the kids into 4-year universities. They wanted every single kid to go to a 4-year university. And now that I look back on that, there's no shame in going to a trade school. If you're a kid right now and you wanted to become a mechanic, you wanted to become an HVAC person, you wanted to become a plumber, you are going to make so much money and you're going to be in such high demand. You want to be a computer programmer, you want to be somebody that's got a skill and a trade, you're going to be in such high demand and you're going to have such a demanding salary immediately. But if you would have said that 20 years ago, people would have like been like, you're selling a kid short. No, because nobody wants to do that work and nobody knows how to do that work anymore. You are going to always be in demand and you're going to just make so much money. Like I bought into the wrong thinking because my parents, I mean, were both blue collar. My grandpa was blue. My whole family's blue collar. And I got sold on, I think, a fake bill of goods when I went to the university and became a teacher. Blue collar is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with working, in a academic job either. I mean, that's what I've done. I'm not blue collar, but there's nothing wrong with doing either. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that they wanted, I don't know, like they wanted me to turn every one of my students, 30 of my 30 kids in my 6th grade class to pursue academia. And I don't think that was right. I think that every kid has different skill sets, every kid has different passions, and every kid should pursue what makes them happy. And I don't know if I did that. I think I always wanted to, like, they wanted me to push every kid into a 4-year university, and I don't think that was right. And I think as a young teacher, when I was like 23, I didn't see it the right way because I wasn't smart enough. I didn't have enough life experience. And I look back and I'm like, God, my first few years of teaching, I wish I could have done that again because I probably steered some kids the wrong way. I should have steered them towards, they probably should have gone into the military if they wanted to. And they were 6th graders, so I wasn't making their decisions for them. I was just trying to help them get to 7th grade. But I always wanted to mentor them in the right way. I always wanted to give them guidance so that in middle school and high school, they could make proper decisions. They had a lot of other teachers after me, so I didn't have any probably impact on anything, but I always wanted to like at least give them like the pebble that maybe would start the ball rolling down the hill. But I think about that a lot. Continuing with George, that just got deep real fast. Sorry about that. George says, I miss the Toys R Us of the 80s. In the late 90s, up until they closed, was just a sad version of its former self. Totally agree. One store I do miss at times is Radio Shack. Our first 2 computers were a Tandy TRS-80 with the cassette player, and then much later was the Tandy PC clone back when DOS PCs were becoming popular. It was pretty pricey for most stuff, but they had those little electronic parts that you just can't seem to get anywhere else. Going back to my fixer ability, it was a go-to for anything electronic I was working on. Great shows as always. Mahalo and aloha. Mahalo and aloha to you, George. I love you guys. I miss you guys. And I will say, you're right. I mean, I remember going to my Radio Shack because my dad was a tinkerer too. And you'd find it's like those baggies, like they'd literally be on the pegboards, like baggies with like, resistors, capacitors, and all that stuff. My dad would, be fixing something because my dad knew how to solder and stuff. And he was a DJ and fixed stuff and electronic stuff that I don't know how to fix, but he'd be soldering stuff. But probably, I don't know if it ever fixed it, but he'd try and he'd need a piece. We had a place in St. Louis called Gateway Electronics that had everything though that Radio Shack didn't have, like that kind of stuff. So he would go there if Radio Shack didn't have it. So, but that's all. I love your guys' feedback. So feedback like this, patreon.com/BRGS podcast. If we missed your favorite story, you didn't get it in this week, get it in this week. There's not a deadline. We can do it next week. All right. So real quick, before we get out of here, because I'm going to take Pam to lunch for her Mother's Day lunch. But I wanted to talk about, of course, I'm super lucky to have the best mom for my 2 girls, my wife, Pam. She does everything for them. I mean, 27 and 16. She's been there obviously with them since day one. So, adult kids at this point. It's an amazing. I watch her every day. She also is a parent to 25 fourth graders that need a mom in the worst way every single day. And this is her 23rd year of teaching. So at this point, how many kids has she been a foster mom to? It's pretty cool. I have an amazing wife. I have the best wife, and I'm so lucky. She takes care of me, but I mean, she's not my mom, but she takes care of this whole family. So just I'm so blessed to have Pam in my life. But I want to talk about real quick that there's so many other mother figures in our lives that we needed to say shout out to today, right? As we think of Mother's Day, there are mother figures. And in my life, it's my grandma. My grandma Ruth was awesome. She was, I talk about my grandpa a ton, right? I talked about my grandpa's garage a couple weeks ago, but my grandma, his wife, she was a saint. She never said anything bad about anybody. If anybody got sick, she would always make meals and drive them over to their house. She was like she was always at our church. Just if anything needed to be done at church, she was down there. Her father was a preacher her father was murdered somehow. I don't know the whole story, like when she was a young child. So she kind of grew up without a dad with a bunch of siblings down in Kentucky. But you never heard, she never said a bad word. She never had a drink of alcohol. She was just, I mean, if you looked up godly woman in the Bible, that was my grandma. And she always put her two sons first, my dad and my uncle. Her grandkids were everything to her, my sister, my two cousins. And it was, Christmas, we always had everything. They weren't rich. They didn't have any money. My grandpa was a construction worker. My grandma drove a school bus actually for the school district that I taught in, Ferguson Florissant, where Pam and I both taught, where Pam still teaches. She was a bus driver, and she also was a checker at a grocery store right in our town. So after school, a lot of times I'd ride my bike up and see grandma at Tomboy, the name of the grocery store. So she was a saintly woman, and she took care of me. I mean, I was always over at her house growing up. I was always at grandma's. Also, my other grandma, Eileen, which was my mom's mom, she lived actually around the block from us growing up. So I spent a lot of time there, and she was really good to us too. So I was very lucky. I had both grandmas in my life. And they took really good care of me. So those are two kind of surrogate moms that I had. But I also want to talk about when you think about it, as a first year teacher, I had a next door. So I always joke that I married the teacher next door, right? And that's Pam, because we taught next door to each other. But on the other next door, because of course there's two next doors unless you have an end classroom. On the other side, I was in 135. Pam was in 137, but in room 133 was a teacher named Mrs. Timmons, and she was a veteran teacher. And just if you want to look up the word teacher in the dictionary, this was Jane Timmons, and she was like a mentor to Pam and I, because we're both younger teachers on this team. And so was the lady across the hall. Her name was Rosemary Perrin. So Rosemary and Jane were kind of the two veteran teachers, with Pam and I, the two younger teachers on this 4-person 6th grade team. And 6th grade was the oldest in the school. So we were kind of taxed with doing a lot of the veteran leadership for the school. And Jane saw me as this young gentleman. And of course, I was one of the only guys in the entire building, because I was in elementary school. Didn't really know what was going on. And took me under her wing and really kind of mentored me right throughout my beginning teaching career. And not only taught me, the thing is, she taught me about the mechanics of teaching, the nuts and the bolts of grade books, and how to structure a parent conference, and, getting great report cards ready and all that kind of stuff. But she was just like always checking in, like, how are you? Are you making it? Are you doing okay? Are you comfortable with how the school year's going? And it was just nice to have somebody there, because like I don't have a great relationship with my mom. And it was like she was like a surrogate mom going through all this. And I mean, I'll be honest, like she was the person I talked to, and I told her, like, I think I'm gonna ask, it was coming up on Pam's 30th birthday. And I think so I told her, I was like, I think I'm gonna ask Pam on a date, and we had this long conversation. Like, she was my mom, and she was the first one that knew. And so when you have people like that in your life, it's like she was always there for my teaching career next door, like a surrogate mom. So that's pretty cool. I just think that, people are in our lives, and it's not just always your birth mom, but there's people that are around you that just get put into your path many times. And I think it's people like, grandmas. And I had two sets, or two grandmas that were outstanding, or like maybe the teacher next door, or could be an older colleague, or somebody that's a neighbor. I don't know who it is in your life, but maybe there's somebody in your life that hopefully this will spark that in your thinking this week, that maybe you could go up to them and just maybe shoot them an email this week. Cause I think I'm going to do that. Cause I see Jane every once in a while on Facebook. Cause obviously she retired years and years ago from teaching. She's a master gardener, and she does a lot of work with gardening, and she's still here in St. Louis. But I think I am going to shoot her an email or a message on Facebook. I hate Facebook. I'm never on Facebook. I post to Instagram and it goes to Facebook. So if you see me on Facebook, it's just because I post to Instagram. Facebook is just a mess. But I think I might go on there today and just send her a message, just thanking her for always being her, just being there, listening, and always giving solid advice. She never was pushy, but she always listened. And I mean, isn't that what a mom does? Like she had guidance, and she was kind, and she always checked in, and she was always like steady. She was always next door. Like I could always take 10 steps, walk out in the hall, because we had these little mini halls, walk right into her room, and always know that I'm getting good advice. Like if I wasn't sure, I mean, isn't that what a parent does? Like, a parent, you're always looking for, like, a mom, like, like you can count on them. And today I think I could walk into Jane's house and just like, hey, Jane, I need advice. Like I haven't seen her in probably 15 years, but I bet if I walked in her house today, I could get some rocking advice. If I needed some advice, I could count on her. So do you have somebody like that in your circle, in your life? And I know you have a great mom, right? Or you did, or, we all have different circumstances. But what about those other moms, those mom figures in your life? Who would it be for you? Is there somebody that you want to share? I'd love to hear that. So patreon.com/BRGS podcast. Maybe let's share that for next week. But we're going to get out of here so that you can spend some time with your friends and family. And I can take the world's best mom to lunch, because I appreciate her so much. So until we get back together tonight for the live call-in show, and have a great time this week on the podcast, I just want you guys to know I appreciate you so very much. Thanks for letting us do the show. Hope you always enjoy these bonus episodes, and I'll catch you over on the clubhouse, brguestpodcast.com/discord. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon.